Hi, I'm Cindy Morales. Welcome back to the Shout My Story podcast, where we share stories of women who choose life in difficult circumstances and the people who help them. If you like our content, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Now, let's get to our guest. Not everybody has an idyllic childhood. My guest today had a very difficult childhood. It was very abusive, and it led to an early life of drug addiction. And in the midst of that, she experienced 2 very difficult pregnancies, yet she chose life. So thank you for that, Emmie, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
So very briefly, tell a story of the pregnancy that you experienced with your twins. How old were you? What were the circumstances? Just go into it.
Well, I had a shotgun wedding at 18 years old, and I ended up pregnant with mono twins. They share a placenta and a bag of water, so they're like in together. They don't have their separate sides. And about halfway through the pregnancy, I lost one of them. And with it being high risk and me having previous losses, give me a moment. I was high risk, so they wanted me to terminate my living baby, and I told them no, that won't happen. They said, well, she's probably going to pass away on her own anyway. I said, well, that's going to be God's will on that one. I'm not going to be the reason why she passes away. I'm going to do my best to keep her here. And I had her at 39 weeks via emergency C-section. It was a very traumatic and distressing labor, but I now have a 13-year-old.
So the baby, was it a brother?
No, they were both girls. They were
Both
completely
girls. So
identical.
her sister died. She died how many weeks into the pregnancy?
23 weeks, but I didn't find out until 28 weeks.
So when you went in for a scan or whatever, they were like, wow, the fetus died, and we can tell by the size that it died a few weeks ago.
Right, and I was suffering an infection, so they wanted to treat me for that.
Was the infection because of the baby, the dead fetus?
Yes. And I'm RH negative, so my blood type, I needed a RhoGAM shot a little earlier than I would have received it. So they were concerned about that posing a risk to my babies.
Okay. And so when you got at 28 weeks, they wanted to terminate the living one.
Correct.
So you went 10 weeks after that?
11 weeks after that.
11 weeks. What were the risks to you? What did they say the risks were for you to carry a baby with a dead baby inside?
Just a lot. They did a lot of, I think it was a lot of scare tactics, because I guess they don't deal with a lot of moms that have knowledge of anatomy. But they said that my baby would cause me sepsis and that it would begin to decay inside of me. And a lot of those things are kind of true, but because I was alive and my other child was alive, we were able to stave off the nasty sides of decays until after I had delivered both babies.
Okay. What was a lot of people, I think, would be scared by hearing you could die, you could get septic. Sepsis is really scary. It can kill you. What made you decide to choose life?
I don't want to ever be responsible for taking a life of anything. And that's not just human or otherwise, but that was my baby anyway. And I was already grieving the loss of one, and the other one hadn't given up yet, so I wasn't going to.
Okay, great. And how's the kid now? Okay?
She's 13. She just celebrated her birthday last week.
And she's okay? No complications?
Oh, she's great. She recently performed in a Tony Award-winning show that ended up being sold out in the community. So she is living her best life, and I'm really proud of her.
Awesome. Then you had another baby, and tell me about that. Tell me about that pregnancy and what happened there.
That was a semi-planned pregnancy. I knew it was coming. I wasn't shocked when I found out I was pregnant, but I went for an anatomy scan, and they saw that I had vasa previa and a velamitous cord insertion, and that was at 22 weeks. So vasa previa is
backing up. Yeah, I was just going to say, wait, for those of us who don't know what that is.
Right. So vasa previa is where the placenta covers the cervix. So whenever your cervix starts to dilate, the placenta will rupture or pull away from my uterus and causing bleeding, which or could have the placenta delivered first, which is very dangerous if the baby doesn't come right after. There's like a lot of risk. So high, so much so just that one diagnosis brought my child's chance of survival of me even going into labor down to 15%. But then he was also diagnosed secondary with a velamentous cord insertion, where his umbilical cord, which is supposed to be firmly attached to the center of the placenta, is actually running through the bag of waters, which breaks when you go into labor. So I was pretty much told he's got no chance of survival. If he does survive, he'll be brain dead. He'll bleed out. There are just so many things that, like, he's not going to have quality of life. And I was told to terminate, and I told him I couldn't do that. And so they put me into a very high risk doctor situation where I had twice weekly appointments where I got to see an ultrasound and do non-stress tests to see how he was developing, because they just couldn't believe that I had such a healthy pregnancy with the diagnoses that I had. And every single week I was told, are you sure you don't want an abortion? Or why are you putting yourself through this? He would just get bigger. And I was just like, because if him being in my stomach is his whole life, I want it to be a good one. And then I had him via VBAC at 38 weeks. And
Did you get
he's
induced?
fine. No, I didn't get induced, but I was in labor for a really, really long time. So by the time it came to pushing, I kind of wanted, I wanted assistance, but I didn't. I did get the epidural.
How's he doing?
He is 11 now. He does have some complications, but those are not from, well, I mean, I guess there can be contributed to his birth, but a lot of it's a lot from his growing up and whatnot and how he's skewed. He had a hole in his heart, which is a VSD, but that has not since corrected itself, but not ever gotten any larger. So his body's gotten larger around it. So it won't need correction. And otherwise, he is a perfectly healthy only boy in a house full of girls. So,
Okay. So a lot of people, I mean, those sound like really, really serious medical conditions. And
right.
a lot of people would be afraid again and just terminate their pregnancy because um, they would just be too afraid. What advice do you have to give to women who are facing not just those
Right.
particular, but also just in general, like when you get a scary medical diagnosis that could affect the life of your child, and especially now, if you're on social media, you're seeing all the time, like there's this really strange new propaganda from the pro-choice side that pregnancy is very, very scary. It's very scary. So no one should be pregnant ever because it's so scary. But your pregnancies really were scary.
Yeah.
And what advice do you have for women in that situation?
Um, I would say trust your gut. Honestly, I feel like the times that I've had to hold the hand of people who were in the middle of their own choices for their own reasons, their issue is they didn't trust what was going on around them, and they were trying to figure out who to decide to trust because nothing felt right. Go with what feels right. If it does, like, if there's any doubt at all, it don't do it. You know?
But you were you scared? I mean, did you think maybe I should get an abortion because this is really scary?
No, because by the times I was continually offered one, I've already seen it. It was already alive. Like I wasn't ever hidden by the facade of a clump of cells or it's not human. Like I already knew what I had to protect inside of me. And I really don't know how, like, as scared as I was like more motivation to keep myself healthy enough that maybe they had a chance. Because that 2% chance and that 15% chance and all the risk to my health was mainly my responsibility. And I chose to care for myself, and I got two very exceptional young children out of it, and I'm very proud of myself.
I'm proud of you too, because I think a lot of people would cave, and they would be told, well, the life of the mother.
I think my support system's the best. Like, I mean, I didn't have anyone, I had a lot of people on medical advice side, but I also had a lot of people saying, you're going to do what you're going to do. And I'm, you know what? Yes, I am. Are you going to be there next to me? Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. And that's really helped me out a lot. Not necessarily someone financially supporting me or having a partner who was going to be able to parent too. It was a lot of, if anyone can do it, you can. And damn Skippy, yeah, I can. I can do it. And I'm going to. And I don't like to be told I'm wrong. So that was a lot of the reason why I was like, my babies are going to be fine. They're like, well, are you sure? I was like, yeah, we'll just get through it.
But you said,
And we did.
especially for the second one, you were offered termination like every week.
Every week for 11 weeks straight.
Why didn't they just say, let's just take the baby early, put him in the NICU? That way you'll be safe, he'll be safe.
Well, they offered a C-section, but the C-section was putting me more at risk, my life.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no, I want to trust my body. I chose no because I didn't feel like I was in that kind of medical danger. And although I wasn't expecting to go home with Nikolai, because with my son, I thought that my pregnancy was his life. So I'd made my pregnancy the best part of me bonding with him. Getting to go home with him was a bonus and completely unexpected because I too didn't think that I was going to have a kid to bring home. So like I said, he's my miracle. With Kimber, I was just like, I feel her. I know she's alive. She told me not to. Like, if she's fighting, I will. So it's both just trust your gut, like trust your instinct, trust that your body knows what it's going to do. And if it does go south, it does go the other way. I've had losses. These are my miracles. I've had losses.
Mm-hmm.
They were just as beautiful because at least I didn't take away that chance. I gave them the 2%. I gave them that 15% chance.
I think it's a really I hadn't thought about it before, but I think it's really interesting that you said that if this is the only life they have, I want to give them the best life that I can. And that's such a good thing to hear if you are a parent of a child with this really severe life-limiting condition that will most likely lead to a very, very early death, like anencephaly or some of the trisomies that have a lot of complications. And that's really beautiful. I thank you for that because I hadn't really thought of that before. Like, yeah, this is their best life right here. So yeah. I have heard from so many women who were told, like, oh, you have a fatal fetal abnormality. Your babies, they're basically they're dead already. You might as well abort. And it's not true. So I really thank you for that. So tell me about your life now. You were going through some really hard times. That's another thing. You didn't really talk about it, but we chatted personally. When you got pregnant, it wasn't like your life was all that great. You had a lot of stuff going on that could have been used as an excuse for an abortion. How's it now?
Right.
How's it going now?
It's great. I have a long-term husband. We have 2 of our own children that were firmly planned and well-timed, I guess. I am a cancer survivor now, so I was able to get help for myself and keep myself healthy for my kids, which is another reason why I even did that. If I didn't have to be here, I probably wouldn't have looked into my pains more. I work with a medical examiner, so I now know more about something I'm mildly obsessed as a child, so I feel like really accomplished there. So, I mean, I'm weird, but I'm happy about it.
It's okay. Your story really brings home to me the reality that abortion is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Right.
Your problems really seemed pretty entrenched at the time, right?
Right, and it felt like forever. It felt like I didn't have a way to dig myself out. But to be honest, my kids were a reason to do that. I didn't have a reason to dig myself out. I didn't get sober until I found out I was pregnant with my twins, where I lost one. And I hold guilt and feel the weight of the responsibility that I couldn't bring both of them into the world because of my bad choices. And I'm just really lucky to have had my second chance with my oldest daughter, which was my first child I got to bring home after so many losses from bad choices. So it's just a matter of choosing what's best, not necessarily what's easy.
All right, let's go back. We can just talk about the unidyllic childhood and maybe the pregnancy that you didn't get to bring home.
Right. So prior to having my first child, which was a twin, and I lost her sister, I had actually experienced 5 miscarriages, 2 of which were stillbirths. My first stillbirth, I had run away from foster care and ended up in Memphis, which everyone thinks is like the worst city, but I found some lovely support systems. They didn't care about what I was doing to myself. They only really had concerns about what my potential was. And that was the first time I saw potential in myself. So instead of sulking and trying to find a way out of my teen pregnancy, I found somebody who would take care of the baby, and they ended up trying to take care of me. But poor choices and bad behaviors and bad company, I did not choose to stay sober during that pregnancy, and I ended up losing it midway through the 20th week. And I went into labor at home with the prospective adoptive parents with me to deliver their baby. And I felt so responsible because I didn't feel like what I was doing was as dangerous as it was until that moment. And in that moment, it was too late. I didn't just kill my baby or terminate my pregnancy. I took away the potential family that the people I'd promised them, that I had taken on accountability for that. And that was really hard. That probably is one of the reasons why I am pro-life. I suffered a few early miscarriages due to drug use, and then I ended up having another stillbirth right before my wedding, and that was due to abuse and physical trauma. I went into early labor with blood pressure. They couldn't do anything to stop it, and baby wasn't old enough to sustain herself outside. So I was given 5 minutes with her after giving birth, and they just whisper off in it. That was the last I saw of her. I signed 2 papers, and I think I have those 2 papers somewhere. But that's all I got. I never got any handprints or little footprints or anything like that. And I never wanted that to happen to me again. So I got married to the next person. I got pregnant too. That pregnancy was scary and harsh, and they constantly told me I needed to get rid of my babies. And I feel like once you know better, you do better. But I would hate for someone to have to go through what I went through just to know better.
How old were you when you had your first pregnancy?
I was 13 years old.
There are a lot of people who would say that fact itself, you're 13, you're too young to have a baby, you should have an abortion. What would you say to those people?
I think you should support the mother. Like, the mother's the most important person in both sides of pro-life, pro-choice. The mother's the one who needs talked to. I think the mother's health and her well-being would lower abortion rates tremendously, because in that moment, if I had just had proper health care, I probably would have known better than to have ended up pregnant in my situation. Education is a big deal, and it's kind of already too late after we have the kids who are pregnant. Does that make sense? We need to stop making sex taboo so people can actually learn about it, and I think that'll help a lot with our health crises, not just pregnancy, but STDs as well.
Did you feel like you didn't have adequate information at the age of 13?
Not at all. I didn't even know I was pregnant until I was 16 weeks pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised, only because they start doing sex ed in 5th grade around here.
I didn't attend school regularly at the time. My parents were not consistent with that.
I see. All right. So you're a special case, maybe.
A little bit.
Maybe. Okay. All right. So that's good advice. And then what advice do you have for young people who may be going down that track?
It's the company you keep. I heard a police officer tell me once you can't stick a white glove in the mud and expect the mud to get all glovy. So the people that you're around, if they're not supporting you, then don't support them. Don't let people make you feel bad if you wouldn't take advice from them. Type things. Like, always be around what you aspire to be. And it really like keeps you out of trouble in those cases, because if you don't aspire to be in jail, you're probably not going to be around people who are going to put you there. And don't let family trick you into being loyal. It's not always your family that has your back. I don't know. But like I said, I'm a special case. Like you said, I've been through a lot of consistent traumas, and it took me into my adulthood doing it my own way, not taking anyone's advice for me to finally succeed.
It looks like you're doing okay now. How do you feel about your life?
My life is okay. I'm enjoying it. I feel very accomplished. I have set my goals out to be what they are, and I'm either meeting them or real close to. So that's good.
Thank you so much for your story, Emmie. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for coming on this podcast.
Of course.
Great story. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Shout My Story podcast. You can listen to future episodes anywhere you get your podcasts, or you can watch us on our YouTube channel, Shout My Story. If you have a story to shout, please contact us at info@shoutmystory.org. Choose love, choose life.